Welcome back, guys. Makebolo. Today we'll be doing the trigonometry. We'll be doing some reduction where we simplifying our sum, that one that we gave us here. So before we move on, I want to thank you so much, guys, for supporting the channel, subscribing to the channel, liking the channel, and also commenting on the channel. Okay, let's move on now. That we have 2 cos into negative x minus 180 times cos 90 plus x all over 1 minus 2 sine squared into negative x. Let's say this something here where we have negative x minus 180. We usually know this thing like where it starts with 180 and it follows with x. Also, this 180, it's always positive here, it doesn't have any negative sign. So now the only problem that we have, if you can put this thing in the form of starting with 180 and its end with x, we're going to have negative 180 minus x. Now the problem is we have this negative. So in order for us to get rid of this negative, we need to take out the common factor here of a negative sign. How do you take a common factor? Just take negative. After taking the negative, in order for us to get this negative, what are we supposed to put here? Now ask ourselves, negative times negative. If you put negative and negative, we're going to give positive. So you can't put negative. So negative times positive, you're gonna get negative. So we're gonna put positive 180. And then if you take negative from this negative, what are going to get? We're gonna get positive. Because if you're saying negative times positive, we get what? We get negative. So it's like this. Now we do have the 180 that is positive and plus this x. So coming to this one now here, gonna be 2 cos. Now doing the same thing here, taking out the negative sign as a common factor, make a big bracket, then negative into, we've already done it here, we're gonna have 180 plus x. I hope you understand that one. And then now from here we have 0, we have 90 minus is this side, 90 plus is this side. So now 90 plus is on the second quadrant, and then now cos is positive in which quadrant? Cos is positive in the first and the fourth quadrant. So now our trig ratio that is going to come here, it's going to be negative. So it's going to be negative because now we have 90, then it's going to change, it's going to be negative sine x. Hope you still remember that one. And from here it's 1 minus 2. Now we have sine squared into negative x. This is like sine into negative x times sine into negative x. Sine of a negative angle is just negative sine x times sine of a negative angle is just negative sine x. Timesing these two, negative times negative is positive, so we're just gonna have sine squared x. So here just gonna return with sine squared x. I hope you remember that one. I hope you did understand what I was doing here. Then from here, just gonna take this 180 plus x as a one angle. It's gonna be like 2 cos. I'm just gonna name this angle, and then this one it's gonna be negative, this negative, and then 180 just gonna name it as theta. So this thing is just going to be like cos of a negative angle. Cos of a negative angle, it's negative, so it's gonna be minus 2 cos theta. This theta, remember, we call it this 180 plus x. So we're just going to use the same thing that we did here. It's going to be 2 cos, okay, cos of a negative angle, it's negative, it's positive, no, it's not negative, it's positive, sorry, cos of a negative angle, it's positive. So we're gonna come back with 180 plus x. So what about this cos of a negative angle? It's positive. Then come with sine this negative, sine x all over. Remember, this one it's a double angle. Which double angle? It's this one. It's a cos double angle. So just gonna come back with 2x cos of a double angle. Then coming here, 180, which quadrant? Third quadrant. Cos positive in what quadrant? Fourth quadrant and first quadrant. So we're just gonna have negative 2 cos x. Hope you understand that one. And then times negative sine x all over cos 2x. And then positive times negative, it's what? It's positive. So it's just gonna have 2 cos x sine x all over cos 2x. This one that is here, I hope you can see, it's a double angle of what? Of sine. So it's just gonna be just gonna be sine 2x all over cos 2x. This one is just equivalent as tan 2x. Sine over cos, it's what? It's tan, because now we have these two, which is a double angle, is gonna be tan into 2x. I hope you did understand that one. Hope you did understand that one. Continuing from doing example number 2. This one example, it's saying 1 minus sine squared into 180 plus 2x all over 1 plus 2 cos into 180 plus x into sine 90 minus x. Now here we need to start by simplifying what we have there at the top. So we have sine squared into 180 plus 2x. What basically this means? It means this thing it's repeated twice. So twice, like x, like sine into 180 plus 2x times what? Sine into 180 plus 2x. It's just this thing repeated twice. Applying our rules, 180 plus in which quadrant? 180 plus and on the third quadrant. Sine positive in which quadrant? Is positive on the second quadrant and on the first quadrant. So these things on the separate quadrant, so it's going to be negative sine 2x. Same thing here, 180 plus on which quadrant? It's on second. 180 plus on the third quadrant, and then sine is positive on the second quadrant or on the first quadrant. So two separate quadrants, so it's going to be negative sine 2x. And then timesing this thing, positive, negative times negative is just positive, so it's going to be positive sine squared 2x. This is what we have here. So I'm not going to repeat this thing here, just going to say 1 minus sine squared 2x. Here I was just explaining how do we reach this point. There's no need of writing all this thing here. I was just explaining how do we reach this point. Then from here I'm just going to say 1 plus 2, applying the same rule that we did this side. Cos 180 plus on the third quadrant, cos positive on the fourth quadrant and on the first quadrant. Two separate quadrants, so it's going to be negative cos x. Hope you see that one. coming here, 90 minus on which quadrant? 90 minus on the first quadrant. Everything is positive on the first quadrant. Since it's 90 now, this trig ratio is going to change. It's going to be cos x. Still, I hope you're still getting that one. Now here, I hope you still remember this one when they're saying sine squared x plus cos squared x is equals to 1. Now when we're making cos the subject of the formula, we are saying cos squared x, taking sine to the other side is just 1 minus what? Sine squared x. This thing is one and the same thing as sine squared 2x plus cos squared 2x. The only difference here is the angles. That's the only difference, but both of them, they're gonna equals to 1. So if you're making this now, cos squared 2x, the subject of the formula is just gonna be 1 minus sine squared 2x. So this thing is equals to this. I hope you get that one. So it's going to be cos squared 2x, then all over. Now this times this is going to give us negative, so it's going to be 1 minus 2 cos x, and then times cos x. Okay, coming with this one down. Now we are timesing this cos by this cos. There's no bracket here where we are timing this thing is not like this. Just gonna make an example here. If this thing was like this, we're going to times this and this and then this and this. Since is this only this dot here, which means this cos times this cos only. I hope you understand that one. So it's 1 minus timesing this, just going to be 2 cos squared x. Just going to be like this. Now there is a double angle that we know, which says 2 cos squared x minus 1. So we can make this to be the same as this, but there's something that we need to do first. What we have here, we have 1 minus 2 cos squared x. Now let's make it this thing start with cos and end with 1. It's just going to be negative 2 cos squared x plus 1. Now it's not the same, but we can make it to be the same. How are we making it? By taking a common factor of a negative sign. If you take a common factor of a negative sign, taking a negative to this negative, we're going to left with positive. So it's going to be 2 cos squared x. This times this give us a negative. Taking a negative into this positive, we're going to left with the negative. Why? Because negative times negative is going to give us positive. So it's going to be negative 1. Now I hope you see that this is the same as this. Sorry about that one. And cos squared 2x all over. Just gonna repeat these steps here, where let's just take a common factor, and then our common factor we're gonna left with 2 cos squared x minus 1. Taking a common factor from this one, and then this is a double angle, so coming back with this one, 2 squared 2x all over negative double angle of what? Of a cos. What is the double angle of cos? It's just cos squared 2x, not squared is there, it's just cos 2x. This is cos squared 2x. This is just cos 2x. This is one and the same thing, just that this one is squared, this one is not squared. So this one is going to cancel the one that is there. When I left it, the one we're gonna left with 1 here. This one is gonna be out, so it's be coming back with this negative, so it's just gonna be cos 2x. Hope you understand this one here, where it's just the same thing as x squared all over x, but this one is negative. And then when it's negative, x cancels x, but we're left it 1x here, so it's just gonna be negative x. I'm making an example here, guys. I'm making an example. I hope you understand that one. Thank you so much.